Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening,
We're
everyone.
on. I was waiting for the countdown.
Welcome. No, I didn't do a countdown tonight. Sorry, audience. Welcome to our audience to Real Woman NZ. Sorry, I think Arzian and I are a bit out of sorts because we still think it's a Monday when it's actually Tuesday. So we hope that you all had a fantastic long weekend and that you managed to have some downtime. I also hope that some of you managed to view the Matt Walsh's What is a Woman video. Did you manage to catch that, Arzian? It's actually on Twitter thing.
I've watched it ages ago. Yeah. No, it's very good. Very good. Nice. I think he's doing us all a big favor. Good old Matt Walsh. He's got some pretty good explanations of things as well. And
yeah,
good on him.
Absolutely. I actually am only still partway through it, but I will get to watch the whole thing. As you can probably imagine, in my role at the moment, I've got lots of things to watch and getting contacted by a lot of people. So as I said, welcome to the audience out there. It's really good to have you on board again. As you can see, there's just the two of us on the panel tonight. Now, that reminds me, if there's anyone that's really keen to jump on to the panel one week and have a chat, be on the panel, answer the questions, and if you've got anything that you'd like to bring, but get in touch with us because we'd love to have, one or two different voices up here each week. And speaking about voices, Arzian, tonight we are going to have our young people's voice. So mainly tonight, you are not actually going to hear a lot from Arzian or myself because we want to dedicate tonight to young people and particularly some of the things that they're facing in the communities. And we know that this forum panel started because of the issues around women and our safe spaces, etc. But this is also linked to what our children are going through, whether it's in school or in their sports or different areas. And what I did over a weekend ago, Arzian, is I interviewed a young 15-year-old student, high school student. Now, he wanted to talk to me because his mother actually heard an interview I did on Reality Check Radio a few weeks back or a month ago. And so they contacted me, and his purpose of wanting to do an interview with me is because he's really concerned about what's going on in the school system. And so we caught up and I had an interview with him, and he's really happy if I share that. And so I had another interview, Arzian, with Reality Check Radio, and that's going to be aired tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. And during that interview, they're also going to air the interview that I did with, we'll call him John Doe. Okay, so he chose that name, right? Now in the interview, I didn't want to put any of my own thoughts or bias in there, so I really wanted it to be his voice. So you're going to hear most of that interview tonight, and once we've done that, Arzian, I'll get your thoughts because you haven't actually heard John Doe speak about what his concerns are in the school system. Some of the audience might like to comment and ask some questions about it as well. So you're more than welcome to throw your comments up. Good evening, Therese. Yes, I can see you there. Thank you. And after that, we're also going to have, I'm going to share a little clip about, now, what is it? Leah Thomas. Most of you probably know who Leah Thomas is, the trans swimmer. I'm going to share a wee clip. The clip actually goes for about 20 minutes, or it might be longer than that, but I'm just going to share a small snippet of it just to get your thoughts on that as well, Arzian. This is from one of Leah Thomas's former teammates, swim teammates. So, yeah. And like I said, we want to dedicate the night purely to the young people's voices. If you're out there watching this at any time and you are a young person or you have a child who's been through something similar to these things, get in touch with us. We're really happy to interview them or just, talk to yourself about it. So we'll do that shortly. Before I move on, hi, Nicole, is it? Yep. I'll just go through this quickly because Nicole's here every week as well. Good evening, everyone. Great to be here, and it's great to see you. And Therese, great to see you as well. We really enjoy seeing the same similar faces each week and
Yeah,
new people.
yeah. Yeah, I would
Just
like to say thank you as well, hey, just to the audience, just for being loyal and really showing up every week. And I also want to say sorry for not having been here a couple of weeks, but I'm hoping to be back a bit more regularly now. So, yeah.
Oh, Azian, you don't need to apologise for that. Although it's good to have you back.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to have
no,
you here.
and thank you to you, Helen, as well, just for keep going. You know, I know all others have had big issues in their lives, so thank you so much, and thank you for doing the interview and bringing that tonight. So I'm really excited because I haven't heard it yet, and I'm very curious to see what that young man has to tell us.
Awesome. And Natalia, good evening to you as well. Janice has just said something about the interview or the clip I'm going to share. I've watched the clip you're going to show. It goes for just under 28 minutes and is well worth watching the whole thing. Yeah, absolutely. But tonight we'll just talk about a little bit of it because the other student that I'm talking to, his goes for almost 20 minutes as well. So we don't want to bore anybody in the audience and keep you here for over an hour. Let's put it that way. Just before I do move on to the young people, just want to make a mention of the fact that, and you probably don't need reminding, it's Pride Week in school next week. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I know there's some parents out there who are concerned about this. And I want to share something to help you realize that you are in control. Now, QE2 school over in the Isle of Man, they have actually, it's the government in the Isle of Man who have suspended all sex education in all schools. So the parents have taken back control of their child's education, saying that they're not prepared to put up with this any longer. So just remember that you can make a difference. So what happened is, and some of you might already be aware, now after a drag queen was allowed to perform in the school and take a lesson, would you believe? So this drag queen taught the class, a year 7 class, which is 10 and 11-year-olds, taught them that there's 73 genders. You can't make this stuff up, right? Anyway, one of the students, a very brave student, well done, told this drag queen that actually they disagreed and that there's only 2 genders. Now, this student was removed from the classroom because he had, or she, I don't know if it was a he or she, had offended the drag queen. Honestly.
Yeah, so, I've heard about that. I think we should all completely change our lives just to suit those few people, don't you think?
Sorry, I've just realised I need to take my name tag. Anyway, that's all right. I use this panel on a Friday night for my politics as well, so I'll just sort that out shortly. Anyway, yeah, and I wanted to mention it just to show you that you as parents have the control, and you can, you get to make the decisions about your children and their school. So if you're not happy with it, jump up and sort it out. I actually spoke to a little country community on Sunday night about this because they're very concerned about what's happening in their school. I can't work that silly thing out up there, so I'll sort it soon. Pride Week coming up now. I know that's starting next week at school. And Azia, you just told me that's Pride Month. Is that right?
Yes. And Sharon Marie also just commented, I thought it was Pride Month. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but in school it's for a week. So I think a week's, we'll hear about that from the student shortly. And I have had another student contact me saying that they're fed up with all the rainbow stuff in the school because they feel like they're being forced with it. You know, it's one thing to have. Yeah.
They are being forced. That's exactly it. Yep.
Yep. And Charmaine said the drag queen is actually offensive. Yeah. Hallelujah. And walk out. Yeah. And it's all very well saying that, Charmaine, but we're putting our children at risk in these places. It's up to us to do something. And the clip that I'm going to share with you will show exactly why we need to. It shouldn't be up to our children young people to do this. So to stop talking, I'm going to jump straight into, I'm calling him John Doe, into the little clip that I did with him. So hopefully you'll hear this. You mentioned around one thing that I was quite shocked about, but I do know that this happens, and you talked about being set work on the laptops and the teacher is just sitting there on the laptop, and I've actually shockingly enough seen this kind of stuff happen, and that's one of my concerns as well, why I asked you about whether you get enough instructional time, and I have heard other students even commenting that they'd rather the teacher up the front talking to them and helping them go through those lessons, because there's such a thing now. I don't know if you're aware, John, but as educators, we've been told for a number of years to have a student-led teaching, okay? Yeah, and no, I mean, you do need guidance, but more teacher-led. Would you agree?
We need much more teacher directional rather than student directional.
What happens when it's student directional?
Well, in a student directional educational system, if a large majority of students is unable to do a thing, you'll see things go up in curriculum or down in curriculum. But with a teacher-led way of learning, it would be more students learning, less being left behind, and because we're following a path, we're not being told, just dilly-dally around, we're following
it's a dilly-dally around thing that I was wondering whether you were going to touch on that. So those students who are being supposedly doing their own student-led learning, are they on task?
A lot of the time, no, I'm going to have to admit it. I see some people that are just blatantly, they see the pattern, they see, this isn't much in the teacher's favour here. They don't have much control, so I'm going to veer off the path a little bit and do my own thing. So on saying that, how much of a learning day do you think you're actually learning? Well, how many hours do we have in a learning day? It's 5 or 6, right? I'd say out of the 5 periods I have a day, the information I'm taking in is about 3 of them. Because there are certain periods where I just disconnect because it's so technology focused rather than learning. Interesting. I was talking to somebody else recently about the technology. I was talking to a high school teacher, and we were both saying that we think there's far too much technology use in classrooms, as well as your own devices. But we can touch on that another time, because today what I'd like to actually direct us to now is some of the more social issues around the school, because there seems to be a large push with values and social issues around something called inclusive education. Do you know much about inclusive education? I have some questions here for you, but would you like to share with me a little bit about what your thoughts are on inclusive? Well, could you give me a better definition of that, if you don't mind me asking? Okay, what do you think about the 100 or so different genders? I think there's no need to have that many of them. I agree that some people feel out of place, or there's the occasional one where you get a little bit of both, and sometimes the doctors decide to take one without anybody having second thoughts about it. We call that intersex. Yeah, intersex I can agree with, because that's somebody else has made a change on your life, and you need help with that. But there are so many that can just be explained as just plain wrong and unnecessary. Yeah, 100 seems to be a bit extreme. I know of 2. I know of males and females, and in between that, like you said, there's the intersex, which is a condition, but it's all these other names. Can you name any of them? Transgenders. I don't. That's just a whole lot of gender dysphoria out in the world that needs to be addressed instead of being. So more of a psychological thing, because it is a psychological issue. So is that something then that should be addressed in classrooms, do you think? Maybe not in classrooms as such, but if we see enough of it in our education system, then we need to start to help people. I know people don't like that term, because that sounds like, get rid of it, heavy. I'm not saying get rid of it, but there are some people that are just very misled that need direction. Yeah, a lot of support is really good, and that's what we want to do to support them. But what's happening now, from what I'm seeing as an educator, John, is that we're told to affirm them, and what that means is by agreeing with their confusion,
which I don't think is very helpful. Do you think it's helpful to agree with somebody who's walking around with a gender that's actually not a real gender? As far as I'm just thinking of when I said, can you name one? I'm thinking I've seen pansexual. Do you know what that even is?
I do believe there are probably people who are going to be pissed off if I get this wrong, so I apologize to those people. But to my knowledge, it's you like people for who they are, not whatever gender out of the 10 years, probably a million that is going to be. You like them for who they are rather than what they are.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever been given a sheet in any of your health classes around the different names?
Oh, yeah. We got given a sheet last year and the year before that in some of our health classes that delved into it. And there were some students that were like, oh, okay, I'll learn about this. And so they got really heavy into it. I was on the fence about it at the time before I started to really develop my own opinion. And there were some kids that were ahead of me with their own opinion that just blatantly refused to learn about it.
Interesting. What about pronouns? Have you ever heard any teacher talking about pronouns or, for example, asking you what pronoun you would like to use?
We got taught about pronouns in those same health classes, but there was this one instance where I was walking through the hallway and I bumped shoulders with another student, and they wanted to apologize because I was just turning a corner and they just turned a corner, so I said sorry, and then they asked me for my pronouns because they didn't want to offend me in an apology, and I said, mate, I'm going to assume, because we're both males, we both have a dick, so we're both he's, right? And he didn't like that one too much, so he walked off. But it's just, we don't need that in our education system to be talked about or pushed onto us.
Exactly. Now, I'm just going to talk about something else. We're talking about pronouns, so you've got he, she. He and she are the usual, normal ones, but, for some really strange reason they're using they in there as well, and Z and Zen I've heard of all different. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but so now I've also heard, correct me if I'm wrong, and this might not be only at this particular school, but there's a cat in the girls' school that's next to your school, a human who's identifying as a cat, just for the listeners out there. That's a schoolgirl who identifies as a cat. Have you ever met her, John?
I've seen her from a distance. I can't say I've ever met because that would mean I've affiliated with them. I've never gone and approached them, never spoken to them. But there were times where they would wear this little band in their hair and they have little cat ears poking out. And there were times they would just let out random noises. And it was just a weird environment to see or even be around. But I've heard cases of that happening all over Christchurch, all over New Zealand, all over the world. It's just people, they're losing their grip on reality.
It's interesting because recently I heard that there's a school in Christchurch where the teacher or somebody actually puts down a bowl of cat milk for a student that's identifying as cat, and I thought surely not. But you're telling me that there's actually a student that you know of in the school who was identifying as a cat. So there might be more than one.
Sadly, yeah. That's my only comment on that.
Oh, and how do you feel about teachers or any adults, in fact, allowing a child to walk around functioning as a cat?
Well, I think a lot more adults and a lot more teachers need to be held to account because, as an adult, I'm 15. I'm currently still going through school. So a lot of people call me inexperienced. A lot of people say I don't know what I'm talking about, but I believe myself to be mature for my age. And so as a 15-year-old, I'm telling the adults that think that's okay, you need to start getting a grip on your life again because it's not right. You know it's not. You've had enough life experience to be able to pull people up on that. But you're so laid back and hands off that you think that's just the free thing to do. It's not. They need support.
Okay, I think in another 10 years, I'm looking at promoting you to Prime Minister, John, because our Prime Minister, I don't know if you're aware, actually doesn't really know what a woman is or how to identify one. But anyway, besides that, we'll just talk about now Pride. So do you know that Pride Week is coming up on June the 12th through to the 16th in schools? What thought comes into your mind when you think about Pride Week at school?
Well, I'll tell you what, I definitely... our education system doesn't let us not know about it. Doesn't let us live it down. We certainly get reminded that it's coming up, to be more accepting when it's up. And I might say a lot of things that sounds anti, like the inclusive community or the LGBTQIA+, if I got that in the right order even, because it seems they add more and more every year. But do they really need a whole week? That's the question I want to ask people. It's because I can understand a day, I can understand 2 or 3, but we give the Anzacs less time than we give this community, apparently.
Great. Thank you for your comment there. Now, we talked before a little bit about anxiety, and you were concerned about a lot of your friends, for example, with depression and anxiety. Do you think that any of these lessons around sexuality or all this rainbow stuff, do you think that's plays a part in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How so?
Well, as soon as you start to question the fundamentals of what makes us humans, like female, male, like one half of the reproductive system, the other half of the reproductive system, you start to lose our foundations. You start to lose the things that like stabilize our way of thinking. So as soon as you start to destabilize generations and their way of how they see the world, like this, a lot of the stuff's recent. So we're getting brought up through primary and middle school and being told this stuff late middle school, high school. And it doesn't serve to help us because we're going through development stages even. So we'll get anxious or depressed anyway. But this being pushed on us, it only serves to strengthen that because people start questioning stuff.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a real instability about not knowing anymore what you believed and what you think, and what you actually know is true, that, you know, there's boys and there's girls. So just thinking about that, what would you like teachers or school leaders of schools to know about the rainbow content in schools?
Like I said with the previous comment, is you need to start realizing we don't need it to be out there. Like, what's the terminology? There's like millennials and Gen whatever.
Gen Z and Gen,
yeah, but the generation before mine and a couple before that, they fought for what a lot of those people stand for and what they get to do nowadays. But I've spoken to a few of them, some of them I'm related to, and they don't agree with it. They don't agree how out there it is, how agenda heavy, how much they try to force people to agree with them. Like in their own community, they shun people. So we need to realize that pushing that in our education system, it doesn't help. If anything, some people get turned away because they disagree with one of 2 things. And so as teachers and as principals, you need to realize we can dampen that a bit and try to help people rather than make them seek other outlets.
Yeah, interesting point to make. There's one thing to be accepting, which I believe that, you know, we talked a little bit before about being accepting, but I'm sure that you're accepting even before Rainbow Week comes about. Would that be correct? Yeah. So, yeah, some really good points made there, and I hope that some of the schools and the school leaders listen to this little audio at some point, John. I certainly would like to have more interviews with you about some of the other education things that are concerning for you. So for now, I'd just like to say thank you so much. I look forward to seeing your future in politics.
Thank you a lot. I can't thank you enough for giving me a way to speak for a whole lot of us.
Wonderful. We'll give you more opportunities. Thank you, John.
Okay, now, as you noticed at the end, he said he thanked me for giving him the opportunity to speak for him and, you know, his friends and that the young people. What are your thoughts? I mean, there's a lot in that, but what are your initial thoughts around some of those? You might have jotted down some bits that you wanted to highlight?
Yes, I did. First, I want to say that he sounds extremely mature for a 15-year-old, and thank goodness that there is young people like that out there, right? And that he, you know, was brave enough to come forward and speak about these things. And yes, it's anonymous, and I fully get that, because these days, otherwise, you're going to get destroyed out there, right, by the cancel culture and by that vile and really crazy mob. So good on him for being brave, for being so courageous to come on your interview. And I like that he said that he spoke not only for himself, but for a whole lot of them that are obviously too scared to speak for themselves. And that brings me then to what he was saying about the teachers and about the adults. Even the adults, and I'm sure a lot of the teachers are too scared to speak out against this as well. And so it'd be good if they took a leaf or a page out of his book and actually did something. Because in the end, it's up to us, the adults, the parents, the teachers, the leaders, to protect these young people. And it shouldn't have to be on their shoulders and their responsibility to put a stop to this madness.
I agree, ASEAN, and that's one of the things I'm really strong on as well. I'm so cross that our children are having to deal with this, and other ones that are having to stand up. Like you said, he's a very mature 15-year-old. He has a lot of people that come to him and ask him for help and support because they're not being listened to in the school. So he's actually kind of, in a way, counselling a lot of his friends and peers. There's some real issues around that. Fancy a child or 15-year-old having to say that the adults need to be held to account, the adults that are working with children, that they need to be held to account, because they're not talking common sense as he knows it. Even he was the one who even referred to the Z and Zur. I didn't even know the correct, but he did. So clearly they're all being indoctrinated with it all. Now there's some comments. Yep, there's some comments here on that, and we'll just throw them up there as well. Natalia, I work in mental health. In my experience, we have always been geared to bring them back to reality. Okay, good.
Yeah. A little bit on that, I don't understand why we are affirming somebody's mental health disorder, right? Gender dysphoria is a mental health disorder, and I don't understand why we are affirming this. And because I'm working as in therapy as well, especially with young people, and I don't understand. Say if somebody identified as Napoleon, we wouldn't all go around and start calling that person Napoleon, so it doesn't make sense. And I believe it's really, really detrimental. If this girl is being allowed to be a cat in school, I mean, that may be fun in kindy, right? My daughter, pretended to be a dog for a couple of weeks, but that didn't mean that we were gonna go as far as then feed her dog food or put a bone.
You have to laugh, but it's actually really serious stuff. I mean, who on earth, could even do this as a teacher? Okay, so Danielle, he is he's 15 years old, and he's in a boys' school. Okay, and sometimes they share different areas around the school with the girls' school that's next to them in Christchurch here. I'm not going to say what school. It's in Christchurch. It's a boys' school next to a girls' school. That's probably enough information. I don't want to, out so forth. Carol, it's great to hear a young person thinking for themselves. Oh, yes, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very good to hear that. And hopefully there will be more, that will speak out. It's so good to hear. And how many deep thoughts he's given to all of these topics. Yeah, I find that schools should really go back to just focusing on academics, right? Maths, reading, writing, and biology. Biology, of course, is an important thing, but there is still no evidence that this whole gender, these different gender identities, that's just an idea. That's somebody's opinion.
So, ASEAN, as you know, gender dysphoria is in the DSM, which is the psychological, book for disorders and mental health conditions. It's in there. It is a disorder. The thing is, though, what's happening in our schools now with this whole inclusive stuff, that's not about gender dysphoria. So, yes, we need to have care and compassion for those who have genuine, persistent confusions or uncomfortable in their body. But that's not for a school to deal with. These are complex issues. And this is not gender dysphoria, what's happening in our schools now, where they are being encouraged even to choose their pronoun. I mean, how absurd. How did we get here? Honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they call it a social contagion, hey, Helen. It's no longer the occasional that is genuinely doesn't feel right in their bodies. It's now become almost an in thing, you know, when a previous generation got piercings and tattoos, right? Now it's in to identify as some exotic thing. And, you know, I didn't know what pansexual was, to be honest. So I learned something tonight.
Yeah, well, we might have a wee lesson one day and delve into those, because I was telling the group that I was talking to on Sunday that I actually think I identify as one of them, which means I'm transgender, by the way. So we'll talk about that another time. That's how absurd it is. Now, let's just move on to some of these. Yep, Charmaine, absolutely. A lot of parents will be keeping their children out of school for that week. Apparently, this gender dysphoria has skyrocketed since COVID and all the lockdowns. That's because where this comes from is a lot of it's online, social media. There's a lot of influencers out there who are masquerading, and being the voice for your children who are online and not listening to their parents because they're online too long. So I hope parents really think about this, and do your children need that much screen time? You need to be careful out there. The school is being abusive to everyone, really. Yeah, and we're going to go into that another time around the law. So I'm hoping that a parent will contact me, or parents who their children might have been dealing with some of the stuff, and yeah, I've got some plans. So yeah, contact me if you're out there listening. Thank goodness for young people with courage, honesty, and for being diplomatic as well. Yeah, he sure was. Now, just so that you know, I had not seen this John Doe since he was 10 years old in a school where I used to teach. I never taught him, but I was in the same school when he was 10, and that's the first time I've seen him. Now he's 15 since then. Like I said, his mother heard me on the radio station, and she said to him, "Oh, there's Miss Help." So, got him to listen, and that's where it all started. Where's the free speech? Yeah. Common sense at last. Yes.
Nice. There's some really good comments.
Starts from the top. It is the government. And you're right. Look, just so you're aware, Sharon, I'm in the process of penning another open letter. I've already done one to our Prime Minister. And would you believe, a few months ago, still haven't had a response. So I'm penning another one at the moment around the whole, what they're doing or not doing, as well as our Minister for Women. So, yeah, just I'll get back to that another time. Muriel, totally agree with him. They need to be held accountable. Yep. Natalia, I wrote to a college teacher, and his response was that those who speak out are reprimanded. Oh, sometimes suspended. Yeah. And we need to know that, there is a lot of teachers out there who feel like us and who are not happy with this. For those who might not have heard any of my previous comments around what happened to me, the Teachers Council sent me a letter. Basically, it's a subtle threat that any teachers who oppose this will be disciplined. It says it. Cancel gender. Cancel gender, yeah. Sharon Marie, there's a cat in a girls' high school in Whangarei who asked for a kitty litter tray. Oh, and the teacher said no, she did her number 2. And oh my gosh, what are we? Yeah. I just can't even.
What kind of world is that? And, I mean, yeah, I did see an interview with 2 teenage girls talking about this kind of behavior, exactly that. And it makes you wonder, I do believe in that somewhere there's parents, right? Well, and you think, how did they raise their children? Sorry, that this can happen, that they feel that this kind of behavior. I mean, I'm actually a bit speechless, to be honest, about this.
There is a lot of mental health issues out there, ASEAN, and I'm not saying that all of the parents have these issues, but social media plays a huge part, absolute huge part. There are parents out there who are beside themselves having to deal with this because they didn't know that their children have fallen into this, and it is largely, first of all, social media, secondly, the schools, and they will be held to account. So teachers out there, you really need to band together and start pushing back on this. Yes. Danielle, teachers are, there we go. Took the words right out of my mouth. Teachers are enablers. You also have caregivers that love being in. Yeah. Okay. Now I will say something about that, because I have mentioned before I was in a school where a child was transitioning, and he'd started the school quite late in the year. And when he came back the next year, he was transitioning, so he came back as a female. Now, I got a little bit cross with one of our teacher aides, and I can say this because nobody knows where it was, who used to tell him how amazing he looked when he came in his little skirt and bit of makeup. And I mean, girls don't even wear makeup at that age. So what is this all about? But I was actually very cross with her, because I said to her, what are you doing? You know, it's like, why are you doing this? So there are educators out there who are enablers. You're so right. And they think they're being kind. And this is not being kind. This is abuse.
I have to say, for an educator, for somebody who learned about what, they should know that wherever you put attention, that is going to grow, right? Wherever we put more energy and more focus, it will totally grow. So if we praise somebody for, oh, you're not wearing a nice skirt, no, I love your makeup, well, that child is going to think, oh, cool, the teacher finally, acknowledged me and recognized me, so I'm going to put on more makeup. It doesn't make sense. Anything, you're muted, Helen. Anything that
probably just as well as too cross anyway.
Yeah, so just anything that we encourage and where we put more and more energy, of course it's going to grow. And that, I guess, is something that I do wonder, though, because we're talking about it so much, and people like, Dylan Mulvaney and these people are being given so much airtime. If we completely ignored it, what do you think? Would that make a difference?
Ignore them, but we need to be speaking out so that people get the common sense. Hey, it's really good. We've got a couple of mail comments here. This is great. Welcome to the channel, guys. Alan, please watch the 4-part YouTube documentary, Dysphoria. Okay. Fleeing womanhood like a house on fire, very comprehensive account of damage being done in India now. Okay, I'll have a look at that. I haven't seen that one. Thanks, Alan, and welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Great to see men who are standing up, eh? Pete, recat identities in school. It's worth watching this video that was circulating yesterday from Whangarei. Oh, gosh, okay. All right, so I'll leave that up there for a moment so that the audience can have a look at that, but it will be on our Facebook page anyway, so that you can copy and paste it and go to that. I will also have a look at that, Pete. Thanks for sharing. You guys are awesome. Yeah, it's a bit of a concern.
Yeah, in regards to that, I was talking to somebody the other day, and one thing that I find quite upsetting due to my past, and this is quite personal to me, but if I was a young person again these days, I would most likely be falling right into that category where I was so confused. And due to what happened to me when I was young, I hated myself being a girl. There was a part of me that totally thought if I was a boy, life would be easier. It wouldn't have happened to me. I envied them for being able to pee standing up. Everything seemed so much easier. They were stronger. I didn't like being a girl. I couldn't stand it, okay? And so these days, especially also coming from a family background that wasn't that supportive, I would have fallen into that trap. And then if I had a really encouraging, supportive teacher that would have told me, oh, do you want to join our rainbow club? And all of a sudden, all this online attention, and then somebody would have mentioned, hey, you might just don't like yourself because you're actually a boy in the wrong body. I could be one of these poor children that would have ended up on hormone, replacement therapy and all sorts of things. And I feel really, really sad that this is happening to the most vulnerable children that are out there, because that's the ones that they're getting to, the ones that don't have necessarily a secure, loving home at home, that don't have that place where they're safe. And these are the ones that they're going for. Yeah, and I find that very, very sad. And I can understand why a lot of girls want to get out. It's hard going through puberty. It's difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Azian, thanks for sharing your personal story there. You're so right. It's puberty is uncomfortable, and it's normal that it's uncomfortable. I mean, it's not a walk in the park. It's not like, oh, yay, yippee, we're going through puberty. You know, we all think, oh my gosh, you know, these bits are growing. And, you know, I can't even imagine what a boy thinks. But anyway, it's like awkward.
It's tough.
Awkward.
It's awkward.
Who
The
wants
body
that?
is changing. You got pimples. Everything is kind of weird and new. And of course, so I understand the children that unfortunately are being sucked into this new ideology, but they're the victims here. And that's why I'm in this fight, okay? Because somebody needs to protect these children.
Yeah, you're so right. Actually, yeah, without going into my one, but I'll talk about that another time. Usually it's the ones of us who know why children need to be protected. That's why we're speaking up. Danielle, while it is a social contagion that's trendy, and since the lockdowns it has grown. Yeah, the trouble with trendy, like Azian said before about the tattoos and the piercings, you can take the piercings out and you can remove the tattoos. You cannot correct a mutilated body back to normal. I mean, you can help with some of it for those who are out there who might have gone down that track. There can be some healing and repair, but we're sterilizing our people. Exactly. Gender is personality, sex is biology. Absolutely, 100%. I've always said that about personalities. Gosh, I don't want to say it too many times in case I've said it before, but I was a punk rock. Did I tell you that, Azian?
Yes. I can see that, Helen.
I don't look like that at all. Come on. With my black, what do you call them? Doc Martens. Yeah, all my black, decked out in black clothing, piercings. Yeah, anyway. Okay, it's not all about
I was
me.
probably more the goth type, and then the whole rave scene was pretty cool. But you know, I get it that there's a rebellious element in each generation, right? We rebel against whatever is the norm, and the norm, you know. But it's gone to the extreme where now, yeah, they're really mutilating those poor children. And yes, Well, I hope that movements like ours are going to really make enough of a difference that that this is going to be stopped. I don't mind what adults do. They can do whatever they want. If adults want to cut things off or add things, that's fine. But leave the kids alone.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've just saw that comment there. And this is, we have to make sure that we say it again and again. This is about us protecting and standing up for the young people, and as well as standing up for women and girls and our boys. Now, this is nothing about speech that shouldn't be happening. This is freedom of expression to talk about things that are really important, whether people like it or not. And this is why we need to discuss it. If you're out there watching this and you don't like what we're saying, then make a comment. Let's have a debate. Talk about why you disagree with us, because this is what it's about. Now, Danielle said, I wonder how this forum will go with the changes, that the government is wanting to take with the free speech laws. The government is wanting to limit speech and debates. Now, apparently from what I've heard, Danielle, is you're going to have a pretty big following on social media before they can put you under that criteria. So I think we're too small yet, but we might get there. It'll be interesting times, but we are pushing back with that proposal anyway. So I hope that others out there are going to be writing submissions. And Katrina, nice to have you in the audience. I went to a Catholic girls' school and reckon they were less totalitarian than schools are now over gender. Wow, that's saying something, isn't it, Katrina? Where are we? What are parents doing about this behaviour? Wow.
Well, I think we saw parents
that are out there that want to talk about this, that are going through this, where you're more than welcome to come on and tell us your thoughts. We don't need you. You don't have to defend yourself, but we know it's a challenge. Like I said, there's parents out there who are struggling with this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah,
Yeah.
the government
And
can't.
overseas, hey, there's parents now that are losing their children because they actually don't want to buy into this whole transgender ideology and want to continue to call their kids, by the name and by the gender or the sex that they were born with. And I think it is hard for those parents. And when we had that conversation with Nicole in our earlier shows, it was actually an eye opener to see how hard it must be for a parent where the child is already in this whole indoctrinated state and the parents trying to pull them out of it. I feel for these parents. Yeah.
So Sarah, the government can't define gender. How can they put it into laws? Very good point. Inside Out said they offered lessons to the government. Oh gosh, yeah, I bet they did. Very also true. Thank you for all the comments. This is a really awesome audience. It's so good to have you participating because it's not only about the panel of speakers. We really value your comments and your thoughts because it's impacting all of us. Virginia, teachers can indeed be disciplined if speak out or not have their practicing. Yes, I'm a bit concerned about my practicing certificate if I choose to go back. They are often afraid to challenge. Therese, it's going to be hard for these kids because when they wake up, yes, it sure will be. I will just let you know out there that there's somebody who's starting a support group for people who have been led down that path and want to get out of it. So we are starting something in New Zealand.
Good.
A friend teaches in a school where parents announced their child was going to transition and the staff applauded. I'm speechless. Which doesn't happen often. 4-part documentary is very good but intense. What's that one? Is that what we
the one
looked at
that
before?
Alan posted about, I think. Yeah.
All right. Cool. I'll watch it.
Yeah, I want to watch that as well. Yeah. Janice,
yes, teachers need to speak up in force. The schools are pandering. Yeah. We're going to have a bigger movement. That's right. Teachers come together. If you're out there, message me, as well as parents. We need to band together. Time to think. Yeah, I've heard of that one. I need to read it. I've actually read a few books. Thanks, Carol. So sad. It is sad. It's criminal, and it's downright makes you bloody angry. Kathleen Stock. Yes, I just watched that. Actually, I just saw her today. Trying to talk at University Oxford during the weekend, a trans glued themselves to the hall floor. Kathleen could hardly speak. Trans was outraged that she was allowed to speak. Oh man, it's crazy, 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 crazy place. There you go, Hazian.
thank you.
Not just teenagers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
She's brave. Thanks, Nicole. Natalia, there are lots of kids who are already suffering with consequences and will be permanently. Yeah, I know. And it's like, do we want more? We can't. We need to stop this. Do you all know? I don't know if I've actually spoken to you since my new petition. I don't think I have. I've got another petition out. I know they don't listen, but we have to do something. So my new petition is to criminalise anyone for giving affirmative care to minors. Jump onto the Parliament website, sign it and share it.
Great.
Yep. Where are we? Yep. Thank you. Who is going to cover the cost of? Yeah, we will be. It'll be in our taxes somewhere.
Well, and in the end, the cost is the teenage or the young person itself who is paying the biggest of the costs with their health and with their, having to deal with it for the rest of their lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get a couple of guest speakers on that have been through these things. Watch What is a Woman, Doc? Yep, absolutely. So all doctors practicing. Yeah, I just watched a little bit of it today, Danielle, with that that male who's, now a woman, is one of the doctors. Yeah, of course he is. Of course he is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the wife of a surgeon whom I told is the taxpayer is paying for double. Yeah, who else is? I mean, the government aren't doing it. It's our money. Oh dear. Unfortunately, where are we? Some parents are enablers via ignorance. They're not educating themselves and fail to realise what's happening to their kids right in front of their eyes. They don't think it's that big of a deal, and they're not correcting their children or steering them back to normalcy. Okay.
Well, I think that comes, in general, I believe that people are averse to open confrontation. A lot of people want to have a peaceful life, right? And in general, people want to be tolerant. Especially women, right? We are agreeable in nature. We don't like to, make a scene. That's definitely something I was told over and over. Don't make a scene. Don't be a drama queen, right? So we're being told, keep the peace, keep it quiet, right? Be tolerant, be accepting of other people. And I think that's really what brought us to this point. We have become so agreeable and so inclusive and all of these things, which I do believe came ultimately, or initially from good intention, right? We wanted to be accepting of other people and of different cultures and different opinions, but it's gone now to a point where it's gone so far to the other side, where it's now being taken advantage of, that we are agreeable and that people in general don't like confrontation, and that's why the ones that are shouting the loudest, mostly that very radical part of the rainbow community, they don't care. They just want to shout, and they glue themselves and they throw paint or tomato sauce or whatever it is at people to make their point. And us, we're here, we're having a polite debate, right? That's who we are, because we want to get there with common sense, with good arguments, with facts. And it's really hard to have that debate if one side just screams into a megaphone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? That one side doesn't have arguments. They scream and they glue themselves to something, and they destroy paintings.
We saw that at Albert Park. We've seen that. And
that's right.
It takes like this young 15-year-old who's like, we're talking before about the being inclusive and everything, but what it's actually doing in our schools now, it's not helping any inclusivity. What it's doing is turning people off and creating more anger and frustration, as you can see. John Doe didn't speak to me out of the fact that he felt like he had to, or that it's fun or anything. He's having to do this because they're fed up. I have people other students who contact and say that, so they're angry, and they've got all right to be, because they have been forced into something that they think is ridiculous. So yeah, we've got quite right. Now, thank you to those, I think it was Nicole and Natalia. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you said you're going to sign the petition. Please do that. If you like, you can, while you're on there, we've got one more thing to share before we go. If you wanted to jump onto the Parliament website now, look at the petitions, you might want to link it in the comments if you find it, whoever finds it. But look, Azian, just before we do finish up tonight, I'm going to share that little clip. Before I do that, though, one thing that John Doe said to me when we finished talking, he's also concerned about the whole toxic masculinity conversation. So for him, as a young man, 15-year-old, young man growing up to be a responsible young man, he said that in school they're feeling like they actually cannot be male. So what he means by that is, he's told me that in his boys' school they are allowed to wear nail polish, but they're not allowed to have facial hair. They are allowed to wear nail polish, the boys. It's not against the rules to wear nail polish. I didn't even think girls are allowed to, but anyway, they're allowed to, but they cannot have, facial hair. So clean shaven all the time, but nail polish is okay. What is that? Any thoughts? Yeah, Muriel, that's a good comment. That's about all we can say.
Bloody stupid. Absolutely. I mean, And I do think a standard of cleanliness is appropriate to have and should be encouraged. But why can't they have a nice trimmed, facial hair or a mustache or a beard? I mean, that's personal grooming. Aren't they allowed to?
Sorry, but we're discriminating against the male sex. They grow hair. I mean, let them. It's their hair. It's their body. Christopher, thank you. That's really nice to say. Thank you. Yeah, we're here for you guys too. This is not just about a woman thing. Like, I have 2 sons, and this is important to me as a mother of 2 sons. Yeah. Where are we? Oops, there's a stupid thing that just came on my screen. It's not there. Sorry, something else came on my screen that I almost shared. Young men at the school which I work at can have facial hair. Well, probably some do, but obviously there's some schools with some ridiculous rules and restrictions. Men need to stand their ground, and some of them are. Oops, this is a good one. What's that? Oh, lost the comments. They're going so fast. There's so many comments coming through. Oh, no, did that one. Lost it. I'm pretty sure Danielle had a little bit more to that comment. I think we can work out what it was. Anonymous talk on gender ideology, Megan Kelly. Yeah, there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, Megan Kelly has become very outspoken, and I like that about it. And there was another comment saying that we have to be assertive, and I have to say that the madness of the last 3 years with everything we've been through, the lockdowns, the mandates, freedom of speech being eroded, women's rights being eroded, and all of that, it has certainly made me more assertive, and I can see that Helen is obviously very assertive too. So I think all of us here are getting to the point where we have been pushed. I used to be very shy and very agreeable when I was young, but that's not the world we're living in anymore, is it? This is the world where we have to stand up to protect what is right and to protect our children. Yeah. So,
and on that note, ASEAN, I want to remind ourselves why we must. Okay, so we're going to show this. So this university silenced the swim girls, and they made them think that they were the ones who had the problem if they didn't agree for the boys to be on the swim team. So this is a former teammate of Leah Thomas that I'm about to share. I just need to find this to share my screen. And they told her, so I'm not going to share all of it, but they actually told her in part of it, this interview, not to speak to the media or they would regret it. Why can I share my screen? Hold on, here we go. Or that they would regret it. And you know what else they did? They provided, because this probably isn't in the bit I'm sharing, they provided the girls with counselling sessions to help them cope with Leah's swimming. Really? So here we go.
And not allow this to happen. Like at each stage of each big meet, like before Ivies happened, I said maybe the Ivy League will step in, and they didn't. Maybe the NCAA will step in before the NCAA championship, and they didn't. And part of it was I constantly kept waiting for these institutions to do the right thing. And I honestly, looking back, I don't know why I ever even trusted that they might, but I did have hope. And that's kind of what kept me through, that I was hope that somebody would see what was correct, but it just never happened. And that's part of the reason why I'm here speaking out, is that, these institutions failed us. And I think somebody needs to do something about it.
What was the environment on the campus, even outside of the team? Because Leah Thomas at this point had become a well-known figure and controversial, to say the least.
It was definitely a conversation on campus. I think most people on campus that found out I was on the swim team would want to talk to me about it. I would say most people on campus probably agreed that it was wrong. But again, voicing that is scary, especially in, universities are very woke, for lack of a better word. And they want to push this liberal agenda, and they want to push, all of those types of ideals on us. So that was definitely really hard to even find people to have conversations with, but I would let them come to me. If people came to me, I would openly discuss.
What do you say to, as I'm sure you've heard many times, the people on the other side of this issue who would say that we have to let people compete against whatever group they identify with, and if we don't, it's going to make them feel excluded or what have you?
Yeah, I understand that. And actually, I have a really easy solution that would work great if everyone can implement it. I think there should be women's sports, meaning people who are born female. And there should be another category, formerly known as the men's team, called open. Why don't we let everyone compete with the men? And I'm sure maybe some men would be unhappy with that. But the thing is people have been talking about making this new like non-binary or trans category. And that is just another group where men are going to always win. For example, if you look at qualifications for the Boston Marathon, which is like the greatest marathon, everyone wants to qualify for that. They're now like a non-binary standard, which guess what? Is the same time standards as the women. So you're giving men another category to then win. And let's just say that there's prize money associated with these 3 categories. Men are always going to win that middle category too. So I don't think that necessarily is the correct solution. And again, I could be wrong. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure there's much more qualified people to make this decision than myself. But I think that would work in the sense that if they're saying that they can't compete in a category that aligns with their identity or whatever that means, that would work.
Those that want to open up women's sports they're not accepting of any kind of compromise.
No, they're not. And that's what's so scary to me about this whole thing. And there's no discussion here. And I think the thing that was most important to me is I think going into college, I was always under the belief that colleges were a place of free speech, right? Candace Owens actually spoke at the University of Pennsylvania my freshman year. And I said, great, this is what this is about. We can have conservative voices on campus. We can have liberal voices on campus. And I was so excited to have all these opportunities to listen to opinions from both sides. Like that is what I went to college for. And that's what I thought college education was. And then as these things started going on, I realized that they don't have that. Their agenda is to have everyone believe what they want them to believe. And, it really became so clear to me my senior year when all this started happening, that is actually the case, that universities want their agenda pushed into everyone's mind. And they don't care if you have a different opinion because they don't want you to have that.
Well, tell me about this. You wrote an editorial for the student newspaper, right?
Yeah. So I was actually approached by which is our school-run newspaper. And she said, we're publishing a bunch of articles that are pro-Leah. We want one person to have a dissenting viewpoint. And I was like, oh, awesome, right? This is exactly what I want. I have no issue with these people who say trans women are women or whatever, right? That's their opinion. I can agree or disagree with that, but that's their own opinion. And so I said, okay, that's great. And so then they kind of said I could do it anonymously, which I was like, okay, awesome. So we did that. And then they kind of gave me a list of rules. They said, okay, and they're like deleting.
What were the rules?
The rule said I couldn't refer to transgenderism as a choice. I said, okay. I wasn't really going to touch on that. I have to refer to everyone with their preferred pronouns.
See, how can you possibly, your whole argument is that someone like Leah Thomas is a man and should be competing against women. And they're telling you that in order to even have the conversation, you have to agree with them to begin with.
I honestly ignored the whole thing and just talked about biology. It really was more, I barely even really touched on Leah in the article, to be honest. And I think you guys have a copy. We can go over it at some point. But, it was really more about the biology and the statistics of how the NCAA came up with their policy for transgender athletes and how it was deeply flawed. I studied engineering, so I understand, doing studies and having hypothesis and scientific aspects. And I think a lot of that is missing. And one of the things I noticed is that testosterone is the only thing mentioned. There's so many other hormones in the human body. Why would one singular hormone level be the determination for someone to compete on one side or the other? Like, what? And I was like, does anyone even part of this even have a scientific background? Did any of you guys even take a biology class? I learned that in my freshman year of high school in a biology class. And I think most of people in America probably had to take bio their freshman year of high school too. So that was just, and it was crazy. And I would write these lines and they would just cut them out because they'd say, oh, this line is, like I said, at the very end, I said, like, if we continue to let this happen, we're going to discourage female athletes from competing permanently. And they said, that's too harsh.
But then eventually it was published in some form.
Yeah. And they retracted it 45 minutes later. But luckily, I did actually get a saved copy of it published.
Did they ever follow up with you about what happened?
Nope. I went out of my way to get in contact with the guy the editor I was working with on the school newspaper, to ask him what happened. And he dodged my calls for about a week. And finally, I got a hold of him. And he just said, sorry, I think half the staff was threatening to quit over this being up. We don't withhold transphobic beliefs in the Daily Pennsylvanian, some blah, blah, blah. It was kind of like, I was kind of angry. I was like an angry phone call. I was like screaming at this guy on the phone. Like, I mean, because I did work hard on it. Like, and it is, I'm not like a natural born writer. Like writing a piece, I'm sure you've written a lot. I'm sure you know. It's like, they asked me to do it. Someone on the staff wanted a dissenting viewpoint. And then it was just like, oh, goodbye. And I was like, well, are we going to make more edits so we can make it like acceptable? Again, at this point, so many edits had been made. It was barely even my piece anymore, but I was still hopeful. Oh, maybe we can have something out there that's saying maybe this isn't fair. And they were like, no, we're done. And I never really talked to any of them ever again.
I mean, I've been, as you know, talking about this issue for a long time, but I still, when I hear stories like this, it still is somehow I find myself being surprised by how crazy it is.
I'm surprised every day. I think my biggest thing is I'm a really strong believer in free speech. My personal history is like, I'm half Taiwanese, and my grandfather was actually the person who fought for free speech in Taiwan. He worked with people on both sides, both parties. And he was the biggest believer in free speech. He had friends that he would argue with until they were red in the face because they disagreed so much, but they were there to have that discussion. And this entire country and many other countries have been built on having discussions where people disagree, right? The Constitution was written over discussions and compromises. And this is,
Wow. Isn't she great? Awesome. What a great conversation, and so many good points. And, I do think coming back to the biology and to the facts, right? Because what are 72 different genders and 120 pronouns? What the hell? None of it is real, right? Biological facts, common sense. Yeah, I would have never thought that I'm going to say stuff like that when I was young.
Like she said, she's a fan of free speech, and this is the whole point, to have these conversations. So let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. Can we just let the audience know, though, that for next week, we apologise. I'm out in Auckland, actually on a political debate, so I won't be around next Tuesday. And as you and I decided, we're going to give you all a break for a week. So you're going to have a holiday, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, let us know. Contact us if you'd like us to talk about anything specific, or if you'd like to be on the panel, or if you know somebody else that we could have here. Mazian, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you. That was really cool. That was a good ending to our segment today, and another young person speaking out. And I think it will just take enough people speaking out and standing up, and that has to include parents, teachers, the students themselves. And hopefully, eventually, we're going to go back to a bit the more normal way of doing things, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Nicole.
So thank you all. Yeah, thank you all for being here, for showing up every week. It'll be good to have a break next week, and then we can really prepare something good for the following week, and I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, neat. We'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. Take care, everyone, and look forward to, see you. Good night.
Have a safe trip, Helen.